Daniel stood frozen in the doorway of their suburban home, his hands still gripping the grocery bags that suddenly felt impossibly heavy. The living room was packed with Amanda's book club friends, their expensive wine glasses catching the lamplight as they turned to stare at him. "Oh, look, who finally remembered to show up," Amanda announced, her voice dripping with theatrical disdain. "Everyone, meet my husband Daniel, the man who can't even remember what day I host book club." He'd crept up Daniel's neck. He'd been working late at the accounting firm, trying to make partner, trying to provide the life Amanda constantly reminded him she deserved. "I'm sorry. I thought it was Thursday." "You thought wrong, as usual." Amanda rose from her seat, her perfectly styled auburn hair catching the light. She'd always been beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads, and she knew it. "Honestly, I don't know why I'm surprised. This is the man who forgot our anniversary last month, who can't remember to take out the trash, who basically sleeps through life while I handle everything." "Amanda, please." Daniel's voice came out smaller than he intended. "Can we talk about this later?" "Why? So you can disappoint me in private instead of the public?" She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Ladies, let me tell you about my marriage. You think you're getting a partner, but sometimes you just get another child to take care of, a useless one who can't even manage two simple things." One of her friends, Jessica, shifted uncomfortably. "Amanda, maybe?" "No, she needs to hear this." Amanda's eye had the glassy look Daniel recognized from too many wine soaked evenings. "Do you know what it's like being married to someone who fundamentally useless? So utterly unlovable that even trying feels like a chore." The word unlovable hit Daniel like a physical blow. He'd heard variations of Amanda's criticism for 3 years now, ever since the honeymoon period evaporated. But this was different. This was meant to destroy. "I'm going for a walk." He managed to sit down the groceries with trembling hands. "Of course you are. Run away. That's what you're best at." Daniel didn't remember leaving the house or getting in his car. He drove aimlessly through the darkening streets of Richmond, Virginia, the autumn leaves swirling in his headlights like his scattered thoughts. Useless, unlovable, the words played on repeat. He found himself in the parking lot of Morrison's, a quiet bar near the river where he'd sometimes grab lunch. The neon sign flickered invitingly, promising the kind of anonymity he desperately needed. Inside, the warm amber lighting and soft jazz created a cocoon separate from his crumbling world. Daniel slid onto a bar stool and ordered a whiskey. Neat. He wasn't much of a drinker, but tonight felt like an exception to the every rule. "Rough day?" the bartender asked, but Daniel just nodded, unable to trust his voice. He was on his second drink when he heard a familiar voice behind him. "Daniel, is that you?" He turned to find Natalie Rivera standing there, her dark eyes filled with concern. She worked with Amanda at the marketing firm downtown. They'd met at a company event, exchanged pleasantry at office parties. She was always kind, always seemed to actually listen when people spoke. "Natalie, hi." He tried to compose himself, knowing his eyes were probably red. "Just needed some air." She glanced at the empty bar stool beside him, then back at his face. Something in her expressions shifted. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "Mind if I join you?" she asked softly. "Something tells me you could use some company tonight." Natalie settled onto the bar stool beside Daniel. ordering a glass of Malbec before turning to face him. She wore a simple navy dress that suggested she'd come from the office, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. There was none of Amanda's calculated glamour about her, just an easy warmth that made the tightness in Daniel's chest ease slightly. I'm guessing this has something to do with what happened earlier, she said quietly. Daniel's head snapped towards her. You know, Amanda was texting the group chat during what happened. Natalie's jaw tightened. Daniel, I'm sorry. What she said was cruel and completely uncalled for. The sympathy in her voice nearly undid him. Daniel took a long sip of whiskey before speaking. She's right, though, isn't she? I forgot about book club. I forget a lot of things. You forgot one event because you were working late. That's human, not useless. Natalie's fingers traced the rim of her wine glass. I've worked with Amanda for 2 years. I've watched her treat you like an inconvenience at every company function. That's not about you forgetting things. That's about her needing someone to be the villain in her story. Daniel looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Natalie had always been quiet at office parties, professional and reserved, but her eyes held sharpness and intelligence that seemed to see through the social performances everyone else bought into. Why are you being so nice to me? He asked. Because someone should be, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Last year's holiday party, do you remember? Amanda spent the whole night flirting with the new creative director while you sat alone at your table. I watched you pretend everything was fine, watched you make excuses for her when people asked where she's gone. That's not what useless look like, Daniel. That's what loyal looks like. Maybe too loyal. The observation hit him harder than Amanda's insult had. He'd spent so long making excuses, smoothing over her behavior, convincing himself that if he just tried harder was better, she'd look at him the way she had when they first met. I don't know when it all went wrong, he admitted, the whiskey loosening words he'd never said aloud. The first year was magical. She made me feel like I was enough, like I was everything. Then something shifted, and suddenly nothing I did matters. I kept thinking if I could just figure out what changed, I could fix it. Daniel, Natalie's hands covered his on the bar. Warm and steady. Some people are only nice when they're getting something they want. Once the novelty wears off, once real life starts, the mask comes off. That's not your failure. That's who they really are. He turned his hand over, their palms touching. It was the first gentle human contact he'd had in months. Amanda hadn't touched him with anything but irritation in so long he'd forgotten that what simple kindness felt like. I've been in a similar relationship, Natalie continued, her thumb brushing against his. My ex fiance made me believe I was too boring, too plain, too everything wrong and nothing right. It took my sister basically staging an intervention for me to see I'd lost myself trying to be whoever he needed me to be that day. What did you do? I left. Hardest thing I've ever done, but also the moment my life actually started. They sat in comfortable silence, hands still joined. As the bartender refilled their drinks for the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel alone. 2 hours passed like 30 minutes. Daniel and Natalie moved from the bar to a corner booth, their conversation flowing with an ease that felt both foreign and natural to him. She told him about growing up in Miami with three sisters, about her love of old mystery novels and terrible reality TV. He found himself laughing actually laughing for the first time in months. Wait, you're telling me you've already read every Agatha Christie's novel? Daniel leaned back, amazed. Even the obscure ones? Twice, some three times. Natalie's smile transformed her whole face, revealing a dimple in her left cheek. My sisters used to make fun of me for it, but there's something comforting about the world where the mystery always gets solved, where justice always wins. Unlike real life. Unlike real life, she agreed, her expression sobering, though sometimes the mystery is figuring out why we stay in situations that hurt us. Daniel's phone buzzed on the table. Amanda's name flashed on the screen, followed by a text. Where are you? You're being dramatic. Come home. Not an apology, not concern, just irritation at his absence. Natalie glanced at the phone, then at him. You don't have to answer. I should probably head back eventually. But he made no move to leave. Should you, though? She leaned forward, her voice gentle but firm. Daniel, I'm going to say something that might be overstepping, but I think you need to hear it. You deserve better than someone who humiliates you in front of others. You deserve someone who sees you, who appreciates you, who doesn't make you feel like you're constantly auditioning for their approval. Her words settled over him like a revelation. When had he stopped expecting basic kindness from his own wife? I don't even know who I am anymore, he confessed. I've spent so long trying to be what she wants. I've lost track of what I. Then maybe tonight is about starting to remember. Natalie's dark eyes held his. What do you want right now, Daniel? Not what you should do, not what's responsible. What do you actually want? The answer came immediately, surprising in its clarity. I want not to go home. I want to keep talking to you. I want to feel like I did an hour ago when you laugh at my terrible jokes about tax brackets, and I remembered that I used to be able to make people smile. That wasn't a terrible joke. It was accounting humor, which is very specific art form. Her hand found his across the table again, and for what it's worth, I'd like to keep talking too. His phone buzzed again, then again. Amanda, escalating from irritation to anger, Daniel turned it face down on the table. There's a late night diner a few blocks from here, Natalie offered. Best coffee in Richmond and pie that'll change your life. We could walk along the river, keep talking, or I could call you a cab home. Your choice. Daniel looked at this woman who'd shown him more kindness in 2 hours than his wife had in 2 years. He thought about going home to Amanda's cold shoulder and strategic silence, to another night of feeling like an intruder in his own life. Tell me more about this pie, he said. Natalie's smile was like sunrise. Grab your coat. I'm about to introduce you to the best decision you'll make all year. They stepped out into the cool autumn night, and for the first time in years, Daniel felt like he was walking towards something instead of running away. The diner's fluorescent lights hummed softly as Daniel and Natalie shared a slice of bourbon pecan pie. Their conversation meandering through topics both deep and delightfully trivial. She told him about her dream of opening her own marketing consultancy, about the novel she'd been writing in secret for 3 years. You're a writer? Daniel asked, fascinated by this woman who seemed to contain multitudes. Trying to be, it's a thriller about a woman who discovers her husband has been gaslighting her for years, making her doubt her own reality. Natalie's expression turned wry, very subtle. I know, my therapist says I'm working through things. I think it sounds brilliant. Amanda never. He stopped himself, but Natalie nodded understandingly. Never supported your interests. I don't think she ever asked what they actually were. They talked until the diner staff started flipping chairs onto tables. The gentle hint that closing time had arrived. Outside, the river reflected the city lights, creating a pathway of gold and silver on the dark water. I should let you go home, Natalie said, but neither of them moved towards the parking lot. Instead, they walked along the river path, their shoulders occasionally brushing. The autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and the promise of change. Daniel's phone had died an hour ago, and the silence from it felt like freedom. Thank you, he said suddenly, for tonight, for reminding me that I'm not crazy, that wanting to be treated with basic respect is not asking too much. Natalie stopped walking, turning to face to him. The street lamps cast shadows across her face, highlighting the concern in her eyes. Daniel, I need to say something, and I need you to really hear it. What Amanda does to you, the constant criticism, the public humiliation, making you feel worthless, that's abuse. Emotional abuse is still abuse. The word hung between them. Abuse, he'd never labeled it that way. Had always thought abuse required something more dramatic, more obvious. I know I'm just a coworker who barely knows you, Natalie continued, but I've seen enough to know you're in a relationship that's destroying you piece by piece, and life is short to spend it with someone who makes you feel small. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest, 3 years of pain and suppressed truth flooding out. Before he could second guess it, he reached for Natalie and she stepped into his arms without hesitation. They stood there on the empty river path, holding each other's like survivors of the same storm. I don't know how to leave, he whispered into her hair, which smelled like vanilla and something floral. We have a house, joint accounts, her family, friends. I know it's terrifying and complicated. She pulled back just enough to look at him. But you know what's more terrifying? Waking up 10 years from now and realizing you gave her the best years of your life while she gave you nothing but contempt. Their faces were inches apart. Daniel could feel her breath, could see the flecks of golden in her brown eyes. The moment stretched, taut, with possibility and impropriety, and the electric recognition of two people who'd found each other at the exact right wrong time. This is crazy, he said. We barely know each other. Then let's fix that. Natalie's voice was barely above a whisper. Come back to my place just to talk, just to keep you from going back to the house tonight. Give yourself one night where you don't have to be person she made you believe you are. Daniel hesitated for a moment before nodding. Okay. Okay, she echoed, taking his hand as they walked toward her car. Natalie's apartment was everything Amanda's showcase house wasn't. Lived in, comfortable, filled with books and mismatched furniture that somehow worked together. She made coffee while Daniel stood by the window, watching the city lights gradually give way to the gray of pre dawn. You're thinking too loud over there, Natalie said, handing him a mug. I'm thinking how different this feels. Your place, you, this whole night. He turned to her. I keep waiting for other shoe to drop, for you to suddenly change and show me this was all an act. That what trauma does. It makes you expect the pattern to repeat. She guided him to couch, curling up beside him in a way that felt natural, right? But Daniel, not everyone is Amanda. Some people actually mean kindness they show. They talk through the night, sometimes falling into comfortable silence, sometimes sharing stories that peeled back layers they both hidden from the world. Daniel told her about his father's death when he was 12, about how he'd spent his whole life trying to be enough for people who kept moving the goalposts. Natalie shared about her own journey from people pleaser to someone who'd learned to value her own peace over others' approval. As the sky lightened to pink and gold, Natalie shifted closer, her hand finding his face. I need to tell you something, and you need to hear it. You are not useless. You are not unlovable. You are thoughtful and intelligent and capable of deep feeling. Amanda's words say everything about her and nothing about you. I want to believe that. Then start right now. Decide that her version of you is not the truth. It's just a story of someone who needed you to be small so she could feel big. Daniel set down his coffee, turning to fully face her. What are we doing, Natalie? This whole night is something that needed to happen, she finished. Maybe not the way it happened, maybe not the timing, but sometimes the universe pushes you toward the life you're supposed to have. Their kiss was inevitable, tentative at first, then deeping into something that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Natalie's hands tangled in his hair as he pulled her closer. 3 years of touch starvation pouring into the connection between them. They moved to her bedroom as the sun crested the horizon, their clothes falling away along with the pretense that she was just a friendly rescue. Making love to Natalie was nothing like a mechanical intimacy he'd had with Amanda. Those scheduled, obligatory encounters where he'd felt like a performer being graded. This was playful and passionate, vulnerable and real. She whispered his name like it meant something, touched him like he was precious, looked at him like he was exactly enough. Afterward, they lay tangled in her sheets, the morning sun painting stripes across their skin. Natalie's head rested on his chest, her fingers tracing lazy patterns on his shoulders. I should feel guilty, Daniel said quietly. I'm still technically married. Do you feel guilty? He searched his heart honestly. No, I feel awake, like I've been sleepwalking through my life and suddenly remembered I'm alive. Then hold on to that feeling, Natalie said, propping herself up to look at him, because you're going to need it when you face what comes next. Will you help me with what comes next? Every step of the way. But Daniel, you have to be the one to take the first step. You have to be the one to choose yourself. He pulled her down for another kiss, tasting coffee and promise, and the beginning of a new life where he was finally enough. I already have, he said.